Okay, so now we find out that the Biden administration pressured Canada to block the Freedom Convoy that was running the vaccine mandate protest. And I thought all along that Joe Biden told us that the Republicans were the ones who were against democracy. Let's get into this. Hey, everyone, welcome back. So I wrote this story. New testimony reveals the Biden administration pressured Canada to block the Freedom Convoy vaccine mandate protest. So during the protests for the vaccine mandates by truckers back in January, top Biden administration officials encouraged their Canadian authoritarian counterparts to clear the trucks who were blocking areas of the U.S.-Canada border. So it wasn't a Justin Trudeau thing. It was Joe Biden who told Trudeau to do it. Now, we found this out on Thursday after a public inquiry into the Canadian government's decision to invoke emergency powers to clear the Freedom Convoy demonstrators found that Washington made frantic phone calls to Ottawa in an attempt to open up the choked-off supply lines. So now think about this, okay? So the Biden administration interfered in a democratic process. Right? Now, how is that? I thought the Republicans were the ones that were against democracy. So according to Politico, after a phone call from White House National Economic Council Director Brian Deese on Friday, February 10th, Canadian Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland said in an email to her staff, they are very, very, very worried. I'm sure they were. All right, they had a mandate they wanted to push. They didn't want any bad publicity for that, right? So does this mean that the Canadian government were a bunch of bitches to the Biden administration? Is that what this means? Now, Freeland said in her email, quote, if this is not sorted out in the next 12 hours, all of their northeastern car plants will shut down. Now that's what the Biden administration was worried about, but Joe Biden was worried about that vaccine mandate. Anywhere in the world, he wanted it to go because he wanted to force it on us. Okay, so according to Politico, Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg called his Canadian counterpart, the Transport Minister Omar Alghabra, on the same day that Deese called Freeland. And Buttigieg questioned Alghabra on Canada's plan to resolve the demonstrators. So here we have the Democrats who are interfering in an actual democratic protest, trying to break up a legitimate protest, if you will, that has no violence whatsoever. But they're the same people who didn't give a rat's ass about the 2020 Summer of Love riots, where police officers were attacked, over 25 people were murdered, federal buildings were set on fire, police stations were burned to the ground, causing millions of dollars in damage in local businesses in cities all across the country. And that's because the 2020 riots worked out in the Democrats' favor, but apparently protests against vaccine mandates, one of the most heinous crimes our government has ever done to the American people, if you ask me. They're all for blocking that, right? Now, Buttigieg initiated the call to Alghabra, who said that the encounter was unusual. Well, I guess when you're talking to a complete incompetent moron who has a lot of power, I guess it would be considered unusual, don't you think? So, Brian Clough, Canada's Deputy Chief of Staff, also heard from some White House officials, including National Security Director Juan Gonzalez, who wanted to connect Canadian national security personnel with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. Folks, can you believe this? The Biden administration wanted to get Homeland Security involved in a democratic protest that was peaceful. Apparently, only rioters, arsonists, and looters are allowed to protest if it's for a Democrat cause, but constitutional rights don't count for people who go against the Democrat agenda. They're making that very clear, don't you think? So then the following day, on February 11th, the potato head in chief, Joe Biden, spoke with soy boy Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who informed Biden that Ottawa had a plan to relieve the blockades. All right, they were going to bust up the protesters, the trucks. So Biden had reportedly referenced to trucker convoys threatening to interrupt the Super Bowl in Los Angeles and Washington streets during his discussion with the soy boy. In an email, Freeland told staff that Deese wanted daily updates on the protests, which never happened because the Emergency Act was activated 3 days after Trudeau's call with Biden, with Potato Head. So Trudeau let his inner authoritarian out just to please the old man Biden. So Freeland told Canadian investigators that she was concerned that Canada was, quote, in the process of doing long-term and possibly irreparable harm to our trading relationship with the United States, and that Washington politicians, quote, who would love any excuse to impose more protectionist measures on us. This is real, folks. This happened. Now, this inquiry discovered that border blockades in Manitoba and between Detroit and Windsor were cleared prior to the activation of the Emergencies Act. So the never-before-used Canadian law empowered the government to freeze demonstrators' bank accounts, prohibit travel to demonstration areas, and it forced trucks to tow automobiles blocking streets. Now, this commission is investigating whether the government was justified in using emergency powers. The answer is absolutely not, because until about 5 minutes prior to that, Canada was a democracy. There was nothing going on there that was causing harm to anyone. All right, it was a legitimate, peaceful protest. So there you have it, folks. Joe Biden and the rest of the Democrats keep telling us that it's the MAGA Republicans who are against democracy and democratic principles. But we have exhibit after exhibit after exhibit showing us that it's the Biden people and that his administration is anti-democratic as Joseph Stalin. Now, I want you to share this story and with everybody you can, and you can find it at rpwmedia.com, but I'm going to put the link down in the description as well. Share the hell out of this story, because people need to know what the Biden administration does every time they violate your rights as an American. And then we can sit back and see what kind of BS story that the misinformation fake news media will give us when they try to defend what the Biden people did. In the end, Joe Biden and his henchmen in the administration tried to crush a Democratic protest that was peaceful. This was an absolutely peaceful protest, okay? Because there was no violence. No one was attacked other than people in Canada who were attacked by police. Okay, so that's it. Thanks for spending time with us, and we'll see you in the next one.